Hey everyone, this is Dr. Eric Fields, a licensed psychologist specializing in addiction. More recently, I've been talking a lot about sports gambling addiction. In particular, it seems that with the advent of so many states legalizing this activity, it has really become problematic for so many people. Today, I want to discuss another function or reason for sports gambling addiction. Sports gambling addiction, or really most gambling addictions, just in general, attract people that want a short-term strategy that can get them to being wealthy, that can get them to their goal of being financially well off. So that this is looked upon as an activity that can really excel them to their goals much more quickly than if they did it, for lack of a better way of saying it, the more traditional way, which is trying to get promotions at work or looking for jobs every so often where they can get into an elevated position and making a better salary. This is one of the reasons why so many people in finance get really attracted to gambling, because many people that work in finance, one of their main motivations, and I'm not judging them, is to make good money. You think of fields like investment banking and how much money you potentially can earn in that kind of position, especially straight out of college. So we're starting to see a lot of young people get really attracted to gambling because their eyes are set on trying to get to that financial level as quickly as possible. And we can speculate that, social media may have a lot to do with this in terms of being kind of an impetus to want to get to those levels because they're seeing various people on social media, especially popular influencers, and how much money they have. And it's kind of like flaunted and thrown in their face. Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and all the social media sites really have been problematic in this way because it really plays into this whole social comparison game. Like, I want to have what that person has. And so I think that that has a lot to do with this driving force of I want to get to that financial level as quickly as I can. And so, how can I do that? So, a lot of people get attracted to the finance field because they can get to those financial goals much more quickly than in other fields, let's say, or quite simply that the the ceiling in terms of their potential, what they could earn, is much greater in that field than in other fields. And so I think there are a lot of these variables that are contributing to what we're seeing today. So the first thing I'm going to say might shock some of you, and that is it's okay to use gambling to try to increase your wealth. However, there is a caveat to that, and that is you have to be able to do it in a very responsible, well thought out, deliberate way. There are people out there, professional gamblers, that do this for a living. Some of them this is their sole source of income. And for others, they will do it as kind of like this part-time job, so to speak, to supplement a salary that they're currently earning at another job. The difference, though, between a professional gambler and people with gambling problems, gambling addiction, compulsive gambling, is that professional gamblers don't get caught up emotionally in this activity. And they have more realistic goals and are looking at it more as a long-term plan. So if you're not looking at this as a long-term plan, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you it's problematic. If you think that you're going to, make several $100,000 a year from this, then you are setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment, and you're probably going to most likely crash and burn, which means you're going to be in the red. So forget making several $100,000 a year from this, you're going to be in the red. And some people have even more grandiose goals, like becoming millionaires from this within a year or within several months even. Professional gamblers, they simply want to win at least 51% of the time, with all things being equal in terms of the monetary size of their bets. What I mean by that is they just want to profit. If they're profiting, then they're content. And by the way, to be a professional gambler, by definition, you absolutely have to be in the green for your lifetime. If you are calling yourself a professional gambler and you're in the red, meaning you've lost money doing this, you are not a professional gambler. So the first thing is, if you want to try to use this as a money-making activity, then you have to be in it for the long game. You cannot be emotionally connected to this activity, so that there has to be enough objectivity and emotional space from it. And you have to have reasonable expectations in terms of, maybe generating several $100s a week at best. The other thing that professional gamblers do is they slowly scale up. So in other words, maybe they start off placing $25 bets here and there, and then they're up several $1,000s. And then once they're up several $1,000s, they increase the size of the bet, but moderately. So maybe now they're placing $50 bets. And as their income increases, they're increasing the sizes of their bets, but gradually, right? This is very different from a problem gambler. As a more responsible professional gambler is slowly increasing the size of their bets relative to their profit and how much they're making from it. A problem gambler drastically increases the size of their bets. In fact, sometimes they start off with big bets right off the bat, so that they're going from a couple $100 bets to a couple $1,000 bets very quickly. They're scaling up way too fast. And, if you understand statistics and the randomness of this activity in terms of winning, then you know that you are going to lose a good amount, a good number of times, right? And that needs to be accounted for. You need to know that going in, that if all bets are the same, if you're winning 6 out of 7 or 8 bets, that is just not going to be a pattern. that is going to stick. We can kind of say that you're on a lucky streak. And what do we know about lucky streaks? They always end, right? You want to be okay with winning 5 out of 8 bets, just a little bit more than half, because that means you're profiting. And there are times you're going to break even for a given night, for a given week, and maybe even for a given month. And you also have to be okay with that. As long as the amount of money you're earning from this is slowly increasing, you're doing fine. And certainly, as long as you're not losing money. If you're in the red, then there's a problem. And really, you should never be in the red. I'm not talking about on a given night or for a given week. I'm talking about your lifetime betting behavior. If you're in the red at any given time, that's a big, big issue. That means you scaled up too quickly and you're placing too large of bets. You're being careless and reckless about it. You're emotionally invested. You're chasing losses, all the things that professional gamblers do not do. So expectations are extremely important for this. If you're thinking that this activity is going to make you an overnight millionaire, stop right away. Do not do it. Now, for those of you who look at this activity as, hey, you never know, like maybe I could make $1 million from it. And you want to place these very low probability bets that could yield a very large win, kind of like the same idea with buying a lotto ticket, that's fine. You know, some people, they want to do like a parlay and they'll put like $20 or $30 on like an 8 or 10-way parlay for the chance of winning, like, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's like buying a lotto ticket, right? The chances of you winning are extremely low. But if you want to kind of do it for the fun of it once in a while, because it's exciting that you never know, right? It might happen. That's totally fine. But that perspective or attitude is quite different than, I need this to happen. I won't be happy unless it happens. You know, my life is depending on this because I have to reach this goal as quickly as possible. If that's what's driving that, then no, it's not going to be good, because you're going to be doing it recklessly. You're going to be doing a lot of these low probability bets, and you're going to be losing a lot of money. You know, there's a big difference between somebody who does an 8-way parlay once a week for $20 and somebody who does it several times a day, $100 each time, right? And on that note, like I said, if you know you're okay with betting on a very low probability, unlikely event for the thrill that you could win a ton of money, go play the lotto. I mean, you know, there, you know, contrary to what most people think, there is not much skill involved in gambling. It is super random. It is almost like pulling the lever on a slot machine. And the reason why is because statistics are statistics. They are based on probability theory. This is probability theory. What might happen, or there's some chance that it will happen, as opposed to certainty theory, which there is no such thing, which is, yes, according to these numbers, this will happen, or the chances that it will happen are like 95%. No, there's no such thing like that in this kind of gambling. And the main reason, and I can speak to this best, is because you're betting on the psychology of individuals. You are betting on human beings and how they're going to perform on a given day. And no statistic can ever tell you with any kind of degree of certainty or even with a lot of confidence of what's going to happen on a given day. And here's the thing, you're not even betting most of the time on one person, right? Like if you're betting on like a UFC fight, you're betting on one person, and that is very random, and we never know what's going to happen, you know, on a one-on-one kind of matchup. But most of you are betting on teams. So now you're talking about configurations of many different people. And so you're not just betting on each individual person, which greatly increases the random variability of what's going to happen, but then as a collective unit in terms of how they're going to perform as a team. I'm sure many of you know this. You could have great, amazing athletes and you put them together on a team and they don't necessarily function really well. They may function really well, but not always. Why is that? Because certain configurations, certain groupings of individuals, even if they're all, all talented, doesn't necessarily mean that the result is going to be a good one. So I could talk endlessly about this, but please just trust me on this one. It is quite random, and it's a kind of activity that you have to account for that. So if it's so random and the chances of you being an overnight millionaire from doing it are infinitesimally small, and the chances of you, if you bet recklessly and emotionally, losing a ton of money and being in serious debt are very high, it makes perfect sense that you don't want to invest so much time in this activity. And the more time that you invest in this activity, the more likely you are to get more emotionally invested. And why is that? Because time is money. Time is the most precious thing we have. And so if we are feeling like we're devoting so much time to certain activity and we're not getting the result that we like, even if we're making money, if it's not the kind of money we expect to make, that sets the stage for being emotionally and problematically invested in that activity. So the other piece of advice I would give you is, if you're looking at this as like an investment portfolio, right? Gambling should be a small sliver. So if this is a money-making activity for you, make it the smallest sliver possible. Put some time in it, but very limited amounts of time in it, and keep the expectations low. Put more time into investment strategies that stand a much better chance. They have a much more likely result of making you some real money in the long term. But even with that, it's a long-term game. If you insist on finding shortcuts, at the very least, understand that the likelihood that any shortcut you choose of really making you a lot of money is slim to none. Just understand that from the get-go. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. Like I said, you might as well just buy a lotto ticket every week. Put your time and energy into investment strategies that are more long-term based. Look at gambling as a long-term based investment strategy. And, focus more on other ways of increasing your wealth. Focus more on your job and trying to perform better and outperform your peers so that you keep getting promoted. Focus more on more sound investment strategies, and you will get to your financial goals. If you're using gambling excessively and as your only method of trying to increase your wealth, you are going to be really disappointed, and there's a good chance the opposite is going to happen, and that is being in financial dire straits. This is Dr. Fields. I hope this was helpful, and I will have more to say about this at another time.